They humiliated the black maid in front of guests until the owner revealed the truth. Crystal light spilled across a marble kitchen where a woman in a plain black uniform rinsed champagne flutes while strings floated in from the ballroom. Laughter rose like confetti on the other side of the door. "In here!" The faucet's hiss covered the small sounds of a tired breath. She moved with careful precision, aware of eyes that lingered too long whenever she stepped into the main hall. The party's beauty had a bruise under it. Sharp comments, lingering smirks, a camera phone tilted toward her like a quiet accusation. She kept working, not because she belonged beneath anyone, but because she knew exactly who she was. Her name was Amara. She arrived an hour early, as she always did, to walk the perimeter of the kitchen, double-check tableware counts, and tie the apron that had seen more weekends than anyone at that party would admit aloud. She worked part-time for an event company while pursuing a degree in counseling, saving every extra hour for tuition and a small fund her mother called the future. None of the guests knew that, and most never cared to. They saw a uniform before they saw a person. The mansion had a storybook facade, ivy, terraces, a fountain that pretended water could sing. Inside, a charity gala disguised itself as benevolence while quietly trading favors in the corners. The guest list included local officials, investment partners, and a few celebrities whose names traveled faster than their contributions. Staff moved like currents under a glossy surface, keeping the night smooth. From the first tray pass, the atmosphere felt off. Eyes skated across her with thin curiosity. Whispers followed when she corrected a server's route or adjusted a place card. When a guest requested water, another lifted an eyebrow as if Amara had complicated the night by existing elsewhere than the shadows. A cluster of women near the entry arched their backs at the camera, then cut their smiles short when they noticed Amara resetting glassware. The pause said everything they wouldn't. She had learned to let small things slide. She knew the difference between clumsy ignorance and performance. Tonight, the performance kept going. Phones appeared for staged candids in the kitchen, as if the contrast between marble and uniform could be captured like decor. Amara straightened stacks of plates, counted silently, and held steady to a truth that warmed her more than the oven doors. She belonged to herself. The party grew louder after the first toast. In the ballroom, a live quartet flirted with a pop melody, and the floor filled with people who were unafraid of being seen. Each time Amara crossed the threshold with a tray, conversations chopped into smaller pieces. Names, numbers, vacations, a charity's mission reduced to a headline. She moved carefully, the way a person does when they know a wrong step won't be forgiven. Near the dessert table, a trio of guests pretended not to study her. Their looks hovered between curiosity and sport. One gave a theatrical sigh when a glass clinked against the tray, as if the sound offended the marble. Another turned the moment into entertainment, narrating her movements to a companion who filmed the room under the pretense of capturing ambiance. The lens drifted back to Amara anyway. When she returned to the kitchen, a senior event planner handed her the dish list with an apologetic shrug. Extra guests had arrived. The crew was short. Could she manage the wash rotation while keeping an eye on the back bar? She nodded and moved with practiced efficiency, alternating between suds and service, carrying the weight of a quiet ledger in her head, which stations were low, which guests had been missed, where the fragile pieces lived. The heat rose. Steam clouded the polished fixtures. The faucet sang its monotone while the party's laughter turned into overlapping currents. Two bridesmaid-dressed attendees drifted into the service area, chasing gossip about the owner whom they had not yet seen. Amara kept her focus while their conversation bounced around her like beads. Rumors said the owner had returned after months abroad, and the guest list had grown eager to orbit the wealth that paid for the chandelier's confidence. The women glanced at Amara as if she were part of the room's design, useful, silent, ignorable. When a stack of plates slid slightly, one gasped with exaggerated delight, the kind that turns inconvenience into spectacle. Amara caught the plates with quick hands, set them down, and returned to the faucet. A camera clicked from somewhere behind. The small sound was the point, not the photo. Word traveled that the owner had arrived. The ballroom shifted. People adjusted their faces. A path formed from the entry to the center of the room, where large donations were announced and photographed. Amara, still in the kitchen, counted stemware and steadied the back bar. She heard the change in voices, the particular brightness of people preparing to be close to power. Moments later, the senior planner asked her to deliver a tray of crystal flutes to the stage. She balanced them evenly, breathed in once to level her body, and moved out into the light. The music paused. A master of ceremonies began a thank you chain that sounded rehearsed even when it wasn't. Amara set the flutes with care, stepped away as the applause rose, and turned to exit the stage. Before she could, a guest called out for the staff to clear a spill that didn't exist. Eyes turned to Amara because they had learned in rooms like this to expect a black woman to pivot toward any mess. She paused, then kept walking, refusing the performance. A soft ripple of disapproval followed. She felt it land on her shoulders, then fall away. Back in the kitchen, another round of dishes waited like a tide. A man in a dark suit appeared in the doorway, pausing to watch the rhythm of her work. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His gaze held recognition so complete it felt like someone had cracked open a window. She nodded almost imperceptibly, and he nodded back. He disappeared into the hall as the applause swelled again. The second toast tried to outdo the first. A young investor bragged about matching donations. A cluster near the bar invented a game of assigning imaginary points to staff roles. Amara's score changed with every smirk. When a woman in emerald silk wandered into the kitchen and demanded a new glass because the old one felt unlucky, Amara rinsed, polished, and returned it without flinching. The woman's eyes slid across Amara's face, searching for something to downgrade. Finding nothing, she dropped the glass into the sink with a clatter loud enough to be heard by anyone wanting a show. People came and went with requests that sounded like orders and gratitude that sounded like charity. Amara kept moving. The night had a center, and it was not them. The night's center was a promise she and her husband had made to each other long before their names were on any deed. To carry dignity into rooms that tried to subtract it. The final toast began with the kind of drum roll only money can buy. The master of ceremonies invited the owner of the mansion to the stage to announce a surprise. The room inhaled. Cameras rose like a field of metal flowers. The man in the dark suit stepped forward, not with swagger, but with the presence of someone who refused to be rushed by applause. He thanked the guests for their generosity. He spoke briefly about the charity's work with young entrepreneurs from communities that rarely receive seed capital, naming neighborhoods that are often overlooked in glossy brochures. A check presentation appeared. The room clapped as if its hands were trying to find themselves. Then he shifted. He described how a house can carry many histories, the visible and the hidden, and how service staff often hold a party together while remaining invisible. He mentioned the kitchen as the most honest room in any mansion. He thanked the event team by name. Finally, he said there was one person whose grace under pressure that night had reminded him why he believed in doing things differently. He asked her to join him. The crowd looked around for a planner in a sparkling blazer or a florist with a halo of blossoms. Instead, the senior planner in the kitchen whispered to Amara that her presence had been requested on stage. The room parted reluctantly as she walked forward, still wearing the plain black uniform, still carrying the quiet steadiness that had guided her all evening. On stage, the owner's eyes softened when he saw her. He spoke of resilience learned in small apartments and brilliance sharpened by long nights, of a partner whose patience had shaped every good decision he had made. He told the room that the person beside him had co-signed the first terrifying loan, read every contract, and held him accountable to the kind of success that changes more than bank balances. He introduced his wife. Silence fell with the weight of a mirror. The performance stopped. The smirks had nowhere to go. In the space where laughter usually landed, something else arrived, recognition, awkward, and overdue. Amara stood under the chandelier that had sparkled all night without illuminating much. She did not perform awe or triumph. She simply met the room with the same even breath she brought to the sink. The owner, her husband, announced that the endowment for the charity would be doubled. He added that the staff would receive a significant bonus, citing the unglamorous math of labor that keeps any celebration from collapsing. The applause returned, hesitant at first, then real. After the presentation, guests approached with new expressions, practicing a late respect. Some offered apologies in tones that hoped to erase the afternoon.